In the last 10 years, over 1,600 people have vanished in United States national parks. No bodies, no footprints, no final phone calls. The National Park Service keeps a quiet list, and they do not like talking about it. Most cases are marked as exposure, animal attack, or simply lost. But the families know, the rangers know, and the people who came back from the tree line know that something else is out there. These 3 stories were posted on Reddit by people who went camping and swore they would never go back into a forest again. They were posted in r/paranormal, r/camping and hiking, and r/nosleep at 3 in the morning by users who deleted their accounts a week later. If you have ever camped alone, if you have ever zipped yourself into a tent and listened to the woods go silent, you will never sleep in a tent again after tonight. Put your headphones on, turn the lights off. This is 18 minutes of true forest horror with no fake jump scares. Just what they heard, what they saw, and what followed them home. All locations are real, all permits were real. I have not changed anything except names. Let's begin, and remember, do not camp in the places I am about to tell you. Story 1. Yosemite National Park, California. Posted by user Yosemite Solo 22. Title: I camped where I wasn't supposed to. I think something lives there. I have always hiked alone. That was my thing since my dad died. At 28, I had done Half Dome twice, Clouds Rest, Upper Yosemite Falls in snow. That weekend in late October, the park was dead. The summer crowds were gone, the waterfalls were low, and the granite was cold. I got a walk-up backcountry permit for Little Yosemite Valley, near Moraine Dome. The ranger at the Wilderness Center was an older guy, maybe 60, with a thick mustache. He looked at my permit, looked at the area I circled, and his face went tight. He said, "You sure you want to camp there?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He just stamped it and said, "Stay on the trail, don't camp off trail, and if you hear anything at night, do not leave your tent." He said it like he was joking, but he wasn't smiling. I thought he was just being a typical park ranger station veteran trying to scare solo hikers. I hit the mist trail around 9 a.m. The woods were silent, too silent, no squirrels, no jays, no wind. Just my boots on granite and fog. The trail to Little Yosemite Valley is beautiful, but that day the fog never lifted. It hung low between the pines, thick like smoke. I kept telling myself it was just October. By 3 p.m. I found a flat spot near a cluster of lodgepole pines. I set up my tent, a small one-person green tent, and hung my food bag. I made a small campfire, but it kept going out, like the wood was damp even though it wasn't. Inside my tent as the sun dropped, I turned on my lantern. It was one of those battery lanterns that gives a soft warm glow. The foggy forest outside was getting thicker. You could not see 20 feet past the tent. I ate, I read, I tried to sleep around 10. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps in the leaves outside my tent. Not an animal. Animals are quick. They shuffle. These were deliberate. 1 foot, pause, another foot. Circling, around and around my tent, maybe 10 feet out. I froze inside my sleeping bag, holding my breath. I whispered hello, no answer, just the footsteps. Then they stopped right outside my tent door. I could see a shadow through the fabric. Something tall, way taller than a man. The lantern light was flickering, even though there was no wind inside the tent. I heard breathing, deep, slow breathing, like something with huge lungs. It stayed there for maybe 5 minutes. Then the footsteps started again, circling faster this time. I did not move for 3 hours. I just listened to it circle my tent. Around 2 a.m., It finally walked away. I heard it go into the woods, breaking branches as it went. Trees cracking. I didn't sleep. At first light, I ripped my tent down so fast I left 2 stakes in the ground. I wanted to see tracks. In the mud around my tent, there were footprints. Bare footprints. Human-shaped, but huge. At least 18 inches long, with only 4 toes, and deep, like whatever made them weighed 600 pounds. They went in a perfect circle around my tent, maybe 100 times. And then straight into the dense woods where there is no trail. I hiked out as fast as I could, 10 miles with a heavy pack, not stopping once. At the wilderness office, the same ranger was there. I told him what happened and showed him photos on my phone. He went pale. He pulled out an old map and pointed to where I camped. He said, "Son, that loop was closed in 1983 after 3 boys disappeared there. We don't put it on the public maps anymore, but you weren't supposed to camp there. You camped in the exclusion zone." He told me never to post the coordinates, and never to go back. I haven't camped since. I still have dreams about that breathing outside my tent. Sometimes I wake up and my bedroom smells like pine and wet earth, even though I live in Los Angeles. I posted this because I saw another hiker on all trails asking about that exact spot last week. Please, if you have a permit for Little Yosemite Valley, stay on the main trail. Don't go off near Moraine Dome. Something is still living there, and it doesn't like tents or lanterns at night. Story 2. Appalachian Trail, Virginia. Posted by user AT Whistler Throwaway. Title: The Thing in the Woods That Learned Our Voices. Me, Jake, and Luis had been planning a 4-day section hike for months. We were all 25, from college. We started at McAfee Knob, heading north. It was early May. The woods were green, beautiful. The first 2 days were perfect. We hiked, we talked, we camped near shelters. On the 3rd night, we decided to stealth camp off-trail, about 200 feet into the woods, near a small creek and river. We set up 2 tents. Me and Jake in one, Luis alone in his tent because he snores. We made a small campfire and were telling stories. Around 9 p.m., we heard a whistle from the woods. Not a bird whistle. It was like someone whistling a tune, but off-key. It sounded like shave and a haircut. You know, whistle, 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 whistle. We all went quiet. Jake yelled, "Hello, is someone there?" The whistle stopped. Then, 10 seconds later, it whistled back the exact same pattern we do when we call each other. 2 short whistles. We laughed nervously. We thought it was another hiker messing with us. Luis, who is the bravest, whistled 3 times. The thing in the woods whistled 3 times back, perfectly mimicking his pitch. Then it started whistling words. I swear, it was trying to copy our voices. It whistled, "Jake," in a high-pitched whistle that sounded almost like my voice. My blood went cold. I have never heard anything like it. It wasn't an animal. It was learning our voices in the dark woods. We decided to ignore it and get into our tents. We put out the campfire. The whistling continued, moving around us in the woods. Trail, dark woods, fog everywhere now. It was circling us, just like in the first story, but this time it was using our names. Jake, Luis, my name, Mark, in our own voices, but whistled. At 11:30, Luis said he needed to pee. I told him don't go alone. He said, "Don't be a baby, it's just a bird." He took his headlamp and walked about 30 feet toward the trail to pee near the trees. He never came back. We called for him. We whistled. No answer. Just footsteps in leaves and then nothing. We grabbed our headlamps and went after him. We found his headlamp on the ground, still on, pointed at nothing. No footprints, no sign of struggle. Just his headlamp in the leaves on the trail. We screamed his name for an hour. The woods were completely silent. No whistling anymore, just silence and breathing in the dark that wasn't ours. Around 1 a.m., we heard footsteps and saw a light coming through the woods. It was Luis. He was walking slowly, no headlamp, his clothes muddy. His eyes were wrong. In the lantern light, his pupils were huge, completely black, like his eyes were all iris. He didn't remember anything. He said the last thing he remembered was walking to pee and hearing someone whistle his name in my voice. And then he woke up standing in a creek, barefoot, miles from camp by a river. He said the woods were whispering and watching. We hiked out at dawn, all three of us, not speaking. Luis hasn't been the same since. He doesn't sleep much. He says he still hears whistling at night in his apartment in Richmond, coming from his closet. He went to a doctor, they said trauma. But last week he sent me a voice note. In the background, faintly, you can hear whistling. 2 short whistles, mimicking him. The Appalachian Trail is 800,000 acres of forest where people disappear every year. Rangers say don't follow sounds that sound like your friends. If you hear your name whistled in the woods, never whistle back. Story 3. Olympic National Forest, Washington. This one is the worst. Posted by user PNMW Cabin Horror. Title: My wife and I rented a cabin we shouldn't have. Olympic is different from other parks. It is a temperate rainforest. It rains 300 days a year. Everything is green, mossy, alive. The trees are 200 feet tall and block the sun. My wife Sarah and I, both 32, rented a cheap Forest Service cabin near Lake Quinault for a week in November. It was supposed to be romantic, off-grid, near the lake and river. The cabin was old, built in 1934 by the Civilian Conservation Corps. 1 room, log walls, a metal roof, a wood stove, no electricity. A single lantern on a table. The ranger station that gave us the key was an hour away. The ranger, a woman in her 50s, told us the cabin had no running water. We needed to get water from the river nearby. She said, if you hear knocking at night, it's just the wood expanding. Old cabins do that. She said it too quickly, like she had said it 100 times at that cabin. The first 2 nights were fine. Cold, rainy, but cozy with the wood stove inside the cabin. On the 3rd night, around midnight, we heard knocking. Not random. It was on the outside wall of the cabin, on the logs. Knock, 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 pause, knock, knock, like a pattern. Sarah sat up and said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Yeah, it's the wood." Then it knocked again, same pattern, but on the opposite wall of the cabin. Impossible. No one could move that fast through the woods in mud. We turned on the lantern and looked out the single window of the cabin. The forest was black, the river we could hear in the distance. Moonlight barely through the canopy over the lake. Then we heard footsteps on the roof. Slow, heavy, dragging, like something was walking on the metal roof, but not with feet. With hands and feet. The lantern flickered violently. Sarah started crying. The knocking continued, now on all 4 walls at once, in that same pattern. Knock, 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 pause, knock, knock. I grabbed an axe we had for wood. I opened the cabin door. I shouldn't have. Outside, the rain was pouring, but the forest was silent. No birds, no insects. Just the river and the lake in the distance. I shone my flashlight into the woods around the cabin. Nothing. Then my light caught something. Eyes. Too many eyes. High up in a tree, maybe 30 feet up. Not reflecting like an animal. Just dark shapes watching. The breathing sound started. That deep, slow breathing again, circling the cabin. My wife screamed from inside, "Don't leave me." I slammed the door and locked it. The knocking stopped instantly. We didn't sleep inside that cabin. At 5 a.m., we packed everything and left the key on the table. We drove straight to the ranger station. The ranger wasn't surprised. She sighed and said, "You heard it too." She showed us an old leather diary in her desk at the station. It was from a ranger in 1947. The last entry said, "The forest takes one person every 7 years. It knocks first to see if you answer. Never knock back. Never open the door after dark." This year is the 7th year for this cabin. We asked how many people disappeared from that cabin near the lake. She said 7 since 1950. All in November. All in the 7th year cycle. She said they keep renting it because if they don't, it will knock on the ranger station instead. We drove home to Seattle and never went back. Last month, I read a news article. A hiker disappeared near Lake Quinault, Olympic National Forest, near that same river. Last seen November 2nd. Search called off after 3 days. No footprints, no body, just like the others. All 3 of these stories share one thing. The National Park Service knows. They close areas without putting up signs. They take cabins off the website for years, then put them back. They tell rangers at the station to say, "Stay on the trail." If you hear something outside your tent, do not leave your tent. If you ever go camping in Yosemite, on the Appalachian Trail, or in Olympic near the lake, and you hear footsteps circling, whistling in your own voice, or knocking in a pattern on your cabin wall, do not answer. Do not whistle back. Do not open that cabin door. Because in the last 10 years, 1,600 people vanished and were never found. And maybe the reason they were never found is because the forest did not want him to be found. If you are planning to camp alone this weekend, maybe watch this again with lights on. And if you are already in a tent right now, listening to this with headphones in the dark woods, with your lantern flickering, listen. Just listen to the woods around you. Is it silent, or can you hear something breathing just outside your tent, watching you, waiting for you to unzip?